My dear friends, have you ever seen someone smiling in public, laughing loudly among people, yet when they go back home, their pillow is soaked with tears? How many times do we meet people who look strong outside, but are silently breaking inside? And maybe sometimes that person is us. We live in a world where we have mastered the art of hiding pain. We wear laughter as a mask, we use jokes as a shield, and we convince the world that everything is fine, while inside, our soul is screaming for healing. But let me remind you of one truth: hiding wounds does not heal them. Just like a wound on the body needs care, medicine, and time, the wounds of the heart need honesty, acceptance, and connection with the divine. Covering them with fake laughter may make others comfortable, but it never brings us peace. God has given us emotions not to suppress them, but to understand them, transform them, and rise above them. Today, let us explore why we must stop covering our wounds with laughter and how, through courage, faith, and self-awareness, we can find true healing. True strength comes from honesty, not pretending. This is a reality we often forget in the race of life. From childhood, we are trained to be strong, and somewhere in our minds, we begin to think strength means never showing pain, never admitting weakness, and never letting tears flow. We build a mask of laughter, we carry a shield of fake smiles, and we convince the world that we are fine, even when we are breaking within. But my friends, isn't it true that behind every forced laugh, there is a silent story? Behind every "I'm okay," there is often a heart whispering, "I'm hurting." And if we keep hiding those truths, not only do we deceive the world, we deceive ourselves. Think about it. When a tree is broken from within, when its roots are weak, even if the leaves look green for a while, eventually it will collapse. In the same way, when our hearts are hurting but we pretend they are not, it is like painting over cracks in a wall. The cracks are still there, growing deeper, and one day the wall cannot hold itself anymore. True strength is not in painting the wall beautifully, but in repairing the cracks from the foundation. And that foundation is honesty, with ourselves, with others, and most importantly, with God. Honesty is not about telling the whole world our problems. It is about refusing to carry a lie on our soul. It is about looking in the mirror and saying, "Yes, I am wounded. Yes, I am struggling. But I have the courage to face it instead of hiding it." That very moment when you accept the truth, you open the door for healing. God does not heal masks. God heals hearts. And a heart can only heal when it is open and honest. Look at daily life examples around you. How many people do you know who always laugh at gatherings, make everyone smile, and look like the happiest in the room? But when you meet them alone, their eyes reveal a different story. We call them the life of the party, but sometimes they are the loneliest souls. The world claps for them because they never show pain, but deep inside, they feel unacknowledged and unseen. And then, one day, we hear news of their breakdown and we are shocked. But they were always laughing. We say, that's the danger of pretending. When we hide wounds, no one can help us because no one knows we need help. Imagine a person with a deep cut on their hand. Instead of cleaning it, instead of treating it, they simply cover it with a glove and pretend nothing happened. They even shake hands with everyone. They smile, they laugh, and they hide the pain. But what happens inside the glove? The wound becomes infected, it spreads, and the pain only grows. Isn't this what we do with emotional wounds? We cover them with laughter, we cover them with business, we cover them with "I'm fine." But inside, the infection of pain grows until one day it overflows in anger, anxiety, or depression. Real strength is when you remove that glove and say, yes, I'm hurt. I need care. I need healing. When you show your wound to the right person, it doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. In the same way, when you open your heart to God and admit your pain, it doesn't make you small, it makes you sincere. Because God already knows what you're going through, but He waits for you to stop pretending. The moment you drop the mask, you invite His comfort. Even in relationships, honesty is the bridge of connection. When we pretend to be perfect, we create distance. People cannot connect with our mask, they can only connect with our truth. Haven't you noticed the people you feel closest to are not those who always smile and say, everything is great. They are the ones who say, I also struggle, I also have wounds, I also cry. Their honesty gives you permission to be human too. And that is where real connection begins, when two souls meet in truth, not in performance. So, my friends, true strength is not in pretending you have no wounds. True strength is saying, I am wounded, but I will not give up. I am struggling, but I will not fake it. I am hurting, but I am open to healing. This kind of honesty takes courage. It takes faith. It takes trust that God will not abandon you when you are vulnerable. And when you embrace that honesty, something magical happens. You no longer need the mask of laughter because you begin to experience the peace of being real. Every scar tells a story, and every wound has a wisdom. Pretending hides that wisdom, but honesty reveals it. So stop measuring your strength by how well you can pretend. Measure it by how bravely you can be real. Because when you are real, you inspire others to be real too. And in that collective honesty, healing spreads, not just in you, but in everyone around you. My dear friends, remember this: the bravest smile is not the one that hides pain, but the one that shines after honesty, after tears, after surrender to God. That is not a fake smile, that is a healed smile. That is the smile of true strength. Pain is a teacher, not an enemy. This is one of the deepest truths of life, yet most of us resist it. The moment pain enters our lives, our first reaction is rejection. We want it to leave immediately. We ask, why me? Why now? Why this? We treat pain as if it is some cruel punishment, a curse that should never have touched us. But if you look closely, every person you admire today, every soul who inspires the world, has been through pain. They did not become strong by living in comfort. They became strong because pain trained them, polished them, and elevated them. Think about your own life. The moments that shaped you the most, that changed the direction of your heart and mind, were not the easy days. They were the nights you cried, the disappointments you endured, the losses that broke you. Pain, though unwelcome, is like fire to gold. Without the fire, gold remains raw, unshaped, and ordinary. With the fire, it shines, it becomes valuable, and it becomes something people cherish. When we stop seeing pain as an enemy and start seeing it as a teacher, our entire perspective changes. Imagine a strict teacher in school, the one who gave you the hardest assignments, who challenged you, who refused to accept less than your best. At the time, you may have disliked that teacher. But later, you realize that their strictness made you sharper, more capable, and more prepared for life. Pain is that teacher. It doesn't come with a soft voice, it comes with storms. It doesn't always feel loving, but its purpose is growth. Let's take daily examples. When you touch something hot by mistake, the pain immediately teaches you not to repeat it. If there were no pain, you would keep touching the fire until your hand was destroyed. Pain is the signal that protects you. In the same way, emotional pain warns you that something in your life needs attention. If betrayal hurts, it is teaching you about trust and boundaries. If loneliness hurts, it is teaching you about self-connection and the need for deeper relationships. If failure hurts, it is teaching you perseverance, patience, and humility. Without the sting of pain, we would never learn these lessons. The danger is when we run away from pain instead of learning from it. Some people use distractions, others use fake laughter, some drown themselves in work or entertainment. But pain, if ignored, keeps knocking until you listen. It is like a teacher who won't leave the classroom until the student learns the lesson. The faster we accept its presence, the faster we receive its wisdom and move forward. Even in nature, this truth is visible. Look at a seed. Before it becomes a tree, it must break, the shell must crack, the darkness of the soil must cover it, and the struggle must begin. If the seed resists breaking, it will never grow. The pain of breaking is the beginning of transformation. In the same way, when we feel broken, we are not ending, we are beginning. Pain is pushing us to grow into something greater than we are now. And notice this: people who have suffered pain often carry a special depth in their hearts. They are more compassionate, more understanding, more grounded. Why? Because pain humbled them, and humility opens the door to wisdom. You cannot truly understand another person's tears unless you have cried yourself. You cannot truly comfort someone unless you have felt discomfort. Pain softens the ego and strengthens the soul. Of course, this doesn't mean pain feels good. It doesn't. But just because it doesn't feel good doesn't mean it isn't good for us. Medicine often tastes bitter, yet it heals. Exercise makes our muscles ache, yet it builds strength. In the same way, pain stretches the heart and the mind in ways that joy cannot. Both are necessary, but pain has a depth of teaching that joy alone cannot give. The mistake we make is asking God to remove all pain, instead of asking God to reveal the lesson behind it. If you see pain as an enemy, you fight it, you resist it, and you suffer more. But if you see pain as a teacher, you sit with it, you listen to it, and you learn. Suddenly, the same pain that once felt like a curse becomes a path to wisdom. Think of the people who rise after pain. A mother who loses everything but finds the strength to rebuild for her children. A man who fails in business but learns resilience and later succeeds. A student who fails an exam, feels crushed, but then studies harder and shines brighter. Pain forced them to grow in ways comfort never could. So, my dear friends, the next time you face pain, do not immediately cover it with laughter or push it away. Sit with it. Ask, what are you trying to teach me? Maybe it is teaching you patience. Maybe it is teaching you faith. Maybe it is teaching you to value what you once ignored. Every wound has wisdom inside it, and when you stop resisting, you begin receiving. At the end, you will realize pain was never your enemy. It was a hidden friend dressed in difficult clothes, carrying precious gifts. And once you have received the gift, you will look back and say, that pain was my turning point. That pain made me who I am today. Laughter without healing is an escape. There is nothing wrong with laughter. In fact, it is one of the most beautiful gifts given to us by God. A genuine laugh can lighten the heart, connect souls, and make life feel brighter. But when laughter is used as a mask to cover inner wounds, it stops being medicine and turns into an escape route. We must understand this difference, because one heals and the other hides. One refreshes the soul and the other exhausts it further. In daily life, we often meet people who are always the center of attention, cracking jokes, keeping everyone entertained, making sure no one ever sees them sad. The world praises them as happy souls, but only they know the silent battle within. Their laughter is not springing from joy. It is a disguise, a cover for the pain they refuse to confront. They laugh loudly in gatherings, but cry silently when no one is watching. Have you ever noticed how tiring it feels to wear a mask all day? Pretending to be happy is the same. It drains your energy because you are performing, not living. Imagine a person with a broken bone. Instead of going to the doctor, they wrap it tightly, wear nice clothes, and smile as if nothing is wrong. They even dance and jump to show others they are strong. On the outside, they look fine. But the bone remains broken. Every move they make only increases the damage. This is exactly what happens when we use laughter to hide emotional pain. The world sees us moving, smiling, and enjoying, but deep inside, the wound is unhealed and getting worse. There is a great difference between laughing because you are healed and laughing to avoid healing. One is freedom, the other is escape. True laughter comes when your heart is light, when your wounds have been faced, when you have cried, released, and healed. But fake laughter comes when you want to distract yourself from the truth. And the truth always waits. You can laugh as much as you want in front of others, but when you lie in bed at night, the wound knocks on your heart again. That is why people who use laughter as an escape often feel emptier after the party ends. Think of it like sweeping dirt under a carpet. From a distance, the room looks clean. Guests walk in and admire the beauty, but underneath, the dirt is piling up. One day, the carpet cannot hide it anymore, and the room is filled with dust. That is what happens to our soul. We laugh and pretend all is well, but inside, the dust of unspoken emotions, suppressed pain, and hidden wounds is gathering. And when it explodes, it often shocks people around us. They say, "But you were always smiling." We never knew you were suffering. In truth, real strength is not about hiding pain with laughter. It is about confronting it with honesty and then reaching a place where your laughter flows naturally, not forcefully. We should never use laughter as anesthesia for our wounds, because anesthesia only numbs, it doesn't heal. Once it wears off, the pain comes back, sometimes stronger. And the cycle continues: pain, escape, temporary relief, deeper pain. This cycle can only be broken when we stop escaping and start healing. Let me give you another example. Many comedians, actors, or public figures who made millions laugh later revealed their struggles with depression. Outwardly, they were fountains of joy. Inwardly, they were deserts of silence. This teaches us a profound lesson. Do not assume that someone who makes others laugh is free of sorrow. Sometimes the loudest laughter hides the deepest wounds. And if we are that person, we must ask ourselves, am I laughing to celebrate life, or am I laughing to avoid facing life? That question itself can open the door to truth. God did not create emotions to be hidden. He created them to guide us. Pain is not a mistake, it is a signal. When you hide pain with laughter, you silence the signal. But silencing does not remove the problem. Healing begins when you listen to the signal, sit with it, and invite God into it. The moment you stop escaping, you start evolving. The moment you stop hiding, you start healing. Laughter should be pure, not pressured. A child's laughter is the best example. Children laugh freely, without reason, without effort. Why? Because they carry no masks, no hidden burdens, no pretenses. Their hearts are clear, their wounds are small, and they do not cover pain with fake smiles. That is why their laughter feels refreshing, not draining. We too can return to that state, not by avoiding pain, but by walking through it with faith. When you allow healing to happen, laughter regains its true beauty. You laugh not because you are escaping, but because you are free. You laugh not to convince the world you are okay, but because your heart genuinely feels light. Such laughter spreads hope, not illusion. It gives others permission to heal, not to hide. So, my friends, never fear facing your wounds. Do not hide them behind fake smiles. Because real healing may bring tears first, but it always ends with authentic laughter. And that laughter is priceless. It is the sound of a soul at peace, the sound of freedom, the sound of someone who no longer needs to escape. God heals in silence. There is a power in silence that we often underestimate. In a world filled with constant noise, endless chatter, and unending distractions, we have almost forgotten how healing silence can be. Yet, it is in the quiet spaces of life where the deepest transformations take place. Just as wounds of the body close naturally when they are kept clean and undisturbed, the wounds of the heart also mend when we give them silence. Silence filled with the presence of God. Think about the busiest days of your life. From the moment you wake up, the phone is buzzing, notifications are calling, people are demanding your attention, and tasks are piling up. There is hardly a moment to breathe. And when you finally lie down at night, your mind is still racing. You are physically still, but not truly silent. Your heart is carrying the weight of the day, your mind is replaying worries, and your soul is still restless. How in such noise can wounds heal? Healing requires stillness, just as a broken bone requires rest. In the same way, a broken heart requires silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is not loneliness. It is not a void. True silence, when embraced consciously, is a sacred space where you and God meet. In that silence, your mind softens, your breath slows, and your heart begins to whisper truths you have been avoiding. The world outside may still be running fast, but within you, a sanctuary opens. And it is in that sanctuary that God begins His work of healing. Look at nature for guidance. The night sky does not speak, but in its silence it gives peace. A calm lake does not make noise, but in its stillness it reflects the entire sky. A seed grows into a tree silently beneath the soil without any sound. Healing too works in this way, quietly, invisibly, slowly, but powerfully. Just because you don't hear the sound of healing doesn't mean it isn't happening. In fact, some of the greatest works of God in our lives happen silently. Let's take an example from daily life. Imagine someone who has gone through heartbreak. At first, they are restless, constantly seeking distractions, trying to fill the emptiness with noise, activities, or other people. But healing does not arrive that way. Only when they finally allow themselves to sit in silence. Perhaps late at night, when the world is asleep, do they begin to hear their own heart again. In those quiet tears, in those whispered prayers, in that stillness where they feel God's presence, the process of healing starts. Silence gives them space to feel, to release, and to receive. Another example is when we fall sick physically. Doctors may prescribe medicine, but they also advise rest. The body recovers best when we are still. Similarly, when the soul is sick, its medicine is connection with God, but its environment for recovery is silence. If you keep moving, keep talking, keep laughing artificially, your soul doesn't get the stillness it needs to recover. Silence is the bed where the soul lies down and gathers strength. People often fear silence because in silence, the truth comes forward. The feelings we have buried rise up, the thoughts we avoided come back, and the wounds we covered with laughter are revealed. But this is exactly why silence is healing. It uncovers what we have hidden, and once uncovered, it can finally be addressed. God does not heal what we keep buried, He heals what we bring to light. Silence is the lamp that shines on the hidden corners of our heart. Have you ever noticed how peaceful it feels after a deep session of meditation or prayer, even if it was just a few minutes of silence? Nothing drastic happened outwardly. No one gave you advice. No miracle occurred in front of your eyes, and yet something within you feels lighter, calmer, and more centered. That is the silent healing of God. He doesn't always speak in thunder or lightning. Sometimes, His voice is the peace you feel after silence. True silence is not about running away from the word. It is about pausing within it. You don't need to go to mountains or forests to experience it. You can create it wherever you are. A few moments of sitting quietly, closing your eyes, breathing deeply, and remembering God can be enough to begin the process of inner healing. Over time, these small doses of silence accumulate into deep strength. Silence also teaches us trust. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You trust that in silence, beneath the soil, God is working. The same with healing. When you sit in silence, you may not see progress right away, but God is stitching the wounds of your heart slowly, invisibly, faithfully. Trust the silence because God is present in it. So, my friends, the next time you feel broken, don't rush to cover it with noise or forced laughter. Instead, gift yourself the sacred medicine of silence. Sit quietly, breathe, and invite God into that space. You may cry, you may remember things you wanted to forget, you may feel emotions rising. But let them come, for in that release, healing begins. With time, you will notice that the heaviness lightens, the pain softens, and a calm strength replaces the inner storm. God heals in silence because silence is the language of the soul. And when your soul speaks in silence, God listens more closely than you can imagine. Trust that stillness, embrace it, and let healing unfold naturally. Because one day, without realizing when or how, you will smile again, and this time not to cover wounds, but because they have truly healed. Share, don't suppress. This simple truth carries immense power in healing our inner wounds. Most of us grow up being told, be strong, and we often misunderstand this to mean, don't show your pain, don't cry, don't tell anyone what you're going through. We believe silence in suffering is strength. But the reality is very different. Suppression is not strength, it is suffocation. When we suppress our feelings, they do not disappear, they only dig deeper into our hearts, waiting for a moment to burst out. And when they do, they come out as anger, frustration, sadness, or even illness. Sharing, on the other hand, is like opening a window in a dark room. It lets in air, light, and relief. Think of a balloon being filled with air. At first, it stretches and holds everything. But as you keep adding more and more air, the balloon reaches its limit and bursts. Our hearts are the same. Every disappointment, every hurt, every unspoken tear fills it a little more. If we never release any of it, one day we explode. That's why people sometimes break down unexpectedly. Someone may cry uncontrollably over a small thing, not because of that small incident, but because years of suppressed emotions finally overflowed. Sharing is the release that prevents the explosion. Daily life gives us many examples of this. Imagine a person who has lost their job but tells no one. They keep smiling in front of their family, joking with friends, pretending everything is fine. But inside, they are drowning in fear and stress. Every night, they toss and turn, unable to sleep. They eat less, their health suffers, their mind feels heavy. Finally, one day, they gather courage and share their struggle with a close friend. To their surprise, instead of judgment, they receive encouragement. The friend offers advice, emotional support, and most importantly, a listening ear. Suddenly, the burden feels lighter, not because the problem disappeared, but because the heart was no longer carrying it alone. This is the power of sharing. When you speak your pain, you cut it into half. When you carry it alone, it feels like a mountain. When you share it with someone trustworthy, it becomes a hill you can climb. Sharing does not mean you tell your story to the entire world. It means choosing the right person, someone who listens with compassion, someone who understands, or simply pouring your heart out to God. Both bring relief. Suppression, however, is like keeping poison inside your body. The longer you hold it, the more damage it does. Have you noticed how sometimes, after keeping emotions locked inside for too long, people develop stress, related health problems? The body speaks what the tongue refuses to. Suppression doesn't just affect the mind, it affects the entire being. The body and soul are connected, and unexpressed pain in the heart often shows up in the body as tension, weakness, or sickness. Sharing is a form of courage. It takes bravery to admit, I am hurting. Society often makes us think vulnerability is weakness, but the truth is the opposite. Only a strong person can stand up and say, I need help. Weakness hides, strength reveals. And when we share honestly, we also give permission to others to share their struggles. Suddenly, people realize they are not alone. The moment you say, I also feel this pain, someone else in the room breathes lighter and says, so do I. Healing spreads when honesty is shared. We should also remember that sharing doesn't always mean words. Sometimes sharing is crying in front of God, letting your tears flow without shame. Sometimes it is writing your feelings in a journal. Sometimes it is sitting silently with someone you trust and allowing your eyes to speak what your lips cannot. Sharing simply means releasing the weight from your chest. When you release it, you make space for peace to enter. Look at how rivers flow. If water is blocked, it becomes stagnant, dirty, and heavy. But when the river flows, it stays fresh and alive. Our emotions are like that water. If we block them, they rot inside us. If we allow them to flow, by sharing, by expressing, they remain fresh and healthy. That is why after a deep conversation, after a heartfelt prayer, or after crying your heart out, you feel lighter. The river has flowed again. At the same time, we must be wise about where and with whom we share. Not every ear deserves to hear your pain, and not every person can hold it gently. Choose those who uplift you, those who understand, those who keep your trust. And when you find such people, treasure them, because they are rare gifts from God. But even if the world does not understand, there is always one who listens without interruption, without judgment. God. When you share your wounds with Him, you are never misunderstood. When you cry in His presence, no tear is wasted. He knows every detail of your pain, and His silence is filled with comfort. Many times, people have said, I prayed and cried to God, but He did not reply. What they don't realize is that the very act of sharing with God was the reply. The peace they felt afterward was His way of saying, I am here. You are not alone. So, my friends, never keep your wounds hidden behind fake laughter. Never let your emotions rot in silence. Share them. If you cannot share with people, share with God. If you cannot speak, write. If you cannot write, cry. Just don't suppress. Because the weight of suppressed pain breaks a person, but the release of shared pain heals a person. Remember this, sharing is not a sign of weakness. It is a step toward healing. And the moment you release what is inside, you begin to experience freedom. Your laughter then becomes real, your smile becomes genuine, and your soul feels lighter. Share. Don't suppress, because healing lives in expression, not in hiding.